Good morning, everybody. Sorry for being 5 minutes late. My name is Dominique Leglu. I'm the editorial director of two French magazines, Science et Avenir and La Recherche. And happy to announce you that I'm preparing a new Science et Avenir for young people, which will be released in some weeks. And young people, maybe they are those that we have to convince. I am, of course, very honored to be with you, a very bright audience in the city of Grenoble, which is where an institute, 3IAI, how do you pronounce that, Mr. Braunschweig? Unpronounceable, has just been announced very officially. And to start this morning for about 10 minutes, I would like to start with a question, with a question to you all. I would like to know who was working or simply talking about AI 25 years ago. 25 years ago. Please raise your hand. Well, of course, it gives your age, but nobody can notice you. It shows that some of you know about what was called the winter of AI, which means that I can remember 25 years ago, I was working with the daily paper Libération and interviewing Jean-Gabriel Ganassia about some sorts of AI. And then I could say as a journalist that it just disappeared. And now we're overloaded with the word. And of course, that's what we're going to talk about also this morning. After my little talk, Bertrand Braunschweig will give a keynote, about 20 minutes. And then we'll have two roundtables organized by Jim Crowley, who couldn't be with us, unfortunately. I think he's in Brussels, maybe to get money. Who needs money? We all need money. And in these roundtables, we have representatives of universities, perhaps you are also in the audience, research labs, big enterprises, or startups, and more political people. And all these people will deal with some major questions about AI. How it does disrupt research and organizations, how it can boost innovation. The feeling I have is that here in the audience, this audience, more or less everybody is interested by knowing more about the ways France, the city of Grenoble, which has this one of the 3AI institutes, Europe can develop a strong ecosystem based on AI, which can measure itself with the US or China, with Canada or Israel. And this is a major issue. Of course, why a major issue? Because we all expect that it will be measured in terms of employment and richness of the city, of the country, of more big firms which could emerge and may become from a startup to unicorns. Obviously, and that's one thing which struck me when I was asked to come here, is that the first wave of disruptive firms, like all the big, very big ones like Facebook, so Google, but also Airbnb, Uber, BlaBlaCar. I wouldn't say they're behind us, but maybe now, and I think the roundtables might reflect that, maybe we're about to talk about, let's say, less sexy subjects. Something which is less understandable directly by the consumer, by the citizen, less understandable, less direct than it used to be. Now it seems that a lot of AI will be devoted to its use in a, of course, strategic manner in more traditional firms and activities. I mean, industry and people on the round tables will reflect that. Agriculture, insurance, health, hospitals, etc. But what I'd like to put emphasis upon here is the fact that apart from rather specialized groups, and in a way you are a specialized group, educated people, the understanding of what AI is still very low. You have to realize that. A lot of information is needed. A lot of explanation is needed. Otherwise, there will be a constant caricature with which you specialists, if you are one in the audience, will have to live. And it's very simple. It's good AI versus evil AI. Promises versus perils. As I always tell many of the researchers I meet, I'm lucky to have this opportunity with my job, the first question I tell them that the layman or laywoman asked the journalist, will big data and AI destroy my job? And more or less, nobody's really able to give a very, very clear answer. The figures differ. Only some kinds of jobs are seen in danger. It leads to a situation where city or a state has to ban certain activities. I remind you London, which has forbidden Uber cars because of the fight of the traditional taxi drivers. See how many cities have to and want and have decided to restrain Airbnb activities because hotel managers protest. And we all wonder what will really happen with autonomous cars and health. Seen from car manufacturers involved in autonomous vehicles, it is a bright future. They would tell you, of course, that accidents with a lot of autonomous vehicles will be less. But you have to have the right streets, the right roads, and the right public around. But seen from the drivers, I was struck, and maybe you saw that article in the New York Times recently. Somebody explaining, well, I'm going to teach my children how to drive a car. Why? Because, you know, it develops things in the brain, which is something like focusing, skills, you know, even you know, the ability, the dexterity with your wheel. It's strange, isn't it? But that's what you read. As far as health is concerned, the question of privacy of the data will come up constantly. It is a major question. Even if there is a promise of a better diagnosis, people fear for their own data when it comes to health. You know, they're ready to share. They say they're afraid, but they're ready to share in reality. We all see that on the major platforms. But when it comes to more intimate things, who knows exactly how different people in different parts of the world will react? You know, they could even of a situation when a medical doctor could be replaced by a robot. You know, that's what in the mind of the people. And even if that robot is a fantastic brain, maybe better than most of the medical doctors, the human ones. So that's the question I wanted to raise to start with. And finally, you know, you feel that we are back to the question of ethics, of non-discrimination by algorithms. This has become a subject. Who talked about that 5 years ago? Now it's in the press nearly everywhere. Since we know that face recognition is one of the major facts. In China, people, you know, could be reluctant and more reluctant. How do you tackle these problems when you are in a group which is, as I said, to start with, well-educated, who knows what you can really do and what you cannot do? Finally, 2 remarks. Of course, explainability could become a major obligation. I wonder how the firms will deal with that. Understanding, I don't know if you use the word already of machine reasoning, understanding it, and it could become compulsory to required by the law to explain it also. Finally, what will be necessary everywhere is to be able to show that the human being remains in the center, keeps control of his or her activity. That's the feeling I have. And I wonder whether it could be useful for the specialists to explain that finally these machines, these algorithms, are not so far from the human brain, but not totally the same. Well, we will have more and more of that in the press, I'm sure. When you see Yann Lequin explaining what he calls and what you call deep learning, maybe it could be a good match, but it's a bit tricky. Showing that biology, in a way, is still important. You know, our body, our real brain. I invited Pascal Pic at a summit in Palais Brongniart in Paris recently, and he put emphasis on the fact that we don't understand the brains of the chimpanzees. And they're not so far from us. Why don't we understand them better? So how will we understand what we put in the machines? You know, he elaborates on that. And other biologists, well, if you can read a book, which is called Infravie, published by Le Seuil, I have no nothing to do with Le Seuil, but it's a very interesting book, which shows the tactics of very, very, very peculiar little organisms who manage in this world, you know. You remember François Jacob saying that la nature avait fait un bon bricolage, you know, it knew how to assemble things. Sometimes it was not that good, but after all, it resisted more than 3.5 billion years. And fundamentally, and that will be my last sentence, you see that the politics, the policy announced, the political decisions, and discourse upon AI will be the real measure of our democracy. So it sounds a little bit, I don't know, too much for this morning, but that's how I feel as a journalist. And now I will call Bertrand Braunschweig, to give us his keynote. Bertrand whom I had the pleasure to interview. Hello.
Good morning.
Happy to be in Grenoble.
Yes.
You're the director of this mission of INRIA, of coordination of the National Program of Research in AI. And beforehand, you were president of the French Association of AI a long time ago. You work for ANR, the National Research Agency. You directed two of the INRIA Center in Rennes, Bretagne, for 4 years. And then in Saclay, Paris-Saclay. You coordinated the white paper on AI published in 2016. And now, well, your task is an important one. So you have the floor.
Thank you.
Sorry, I take this.
Good. Can I have the slides, please? Thank you. So, yeah, where do we go with AI in our society? This is my short keynote this morning. So I will first, it should not be blue, okay? You will have a lot of blue. Any way to get rid of this blue? We will see. So the colors of the slides will be interesting, but never mind. Okay, so quickly, what is the AI's impact at the moment? Yeah, a lot of blue. So in many application domains, there is a lot of impact of AI. This is an example in health with the company Therapixel, which won the Digital Mammography Challenge a few months ago, and so they are now developing their products for radiography treatment. We, just to mention also in another one in France, Therapanacea, which is optimizing cancer treatment also by using a lot of deep learning. So health is of course a big domain for AI. Music creation, creativity. So this is from 2 years ago, I think, when François Pachet was the first one to show something that was composed by an AI, in this case, something which sounded more between Beach Boys and Beatles. But this year, you have probably noticed Huawei, where they finished the Unfinished Symphony of Schubert, and also a lot of records have been done with AI, and also films, scenarios, etc., paintings. Drive a car. This one is announced to be at level 5, which is a top autonomicity level for a car. I'm not sure, but they say that they are able to conclude level 5 tests on public road. Probably not in very complicated arrangements, but still it's impressive arrangement. Recently, for example, Peugeot PSA announced that they will not go beyond level 3. So yeah, we have to see what will go on with this. Games, of course, games have been also very much addressed by AI. So the last one is StarCraft. I'm not an expert in StarCraft at all. So StarCraft, which was beaten by DeepMind. So after having won in Go, in chess, and other games, a lot of Atari games, etc. in the past. So yeah, and also in defense and security. If you haven't seen on YouTube this small movie, Slaughterbots, I encourage you to look at it. It's 8 minutes, done by Stuart Russell. So this is an example of autonomous weapon, not exactly the one you are thinking about immediately. So this little device has cameras, face recognition, explosive, and it's able to do a lot of harm. So yeah, interesting movie, which is not true, of course. But also, okay, recommend a video, attribute a loan, make a decision on an investment. More and more in security and cybersecurity, identifying cyber attacks with AI, also helping for the blind, customized advertisement, etc. So many applications. So this is the status now. Every day you see more and more. So no surprise. Yeah, I think most of you know about it. I just want to talk a bit more now about what AI cannot do for the moment, with some examples. So this, the green hand is still green, very good. So the green hand shows that we know how to do that, we are good at it. So object recognition in images, for example, I don't say that it's completely solved, of course, but there has been lots of progress. And so now since 2012, artificial systems are becoming better and better, all this with deep learning as opposed to traditional computer vision before. And now they go beyond human level, so they reach 2 or 3% of error rate, which is really impressive. So this is well known. I take advantage of the presence of my colleague Cordelia here to show that we are not yet so well for action recognition in videos, although there are some interesting works. So this is taken from your work, Cordelia. Huh? I think this is really much more difficult than recognizing object images. Recognizing actions demands more computing power, more data, and metadata, etc. So this is ongoing work, as you will probably confirm later. A lot of emphasis on image annotation. Image annotation is important, for example, for blind people. It's very good to have systems able to speak about what they see in images. So this is an example from CaptionBot from Microsoft. So very good. I think it's a group of people riding skis on a snowy mountain and then seem happy. I think it's rather well done. Huh? So you can use that. Not all the time, but frequently. And there are a lot of potential applications of, let's say, scene understanding in general. But situation understanding in general is not that good. You see another example here where the system say that it's also a group of people riding skis on a mountain. And of course, this is wrong this time. So some progress needs to be done. You'll see. Sorry, I missed. Yeah, I have to do the same. No, this one is not so good. Understanding, processing a question and answering. So you are obviously familiar with your personal assistants. You are able to ask them simple questions and they reply correctly. They process your question, but we cannot really say that they understand it. If you really try to see them understand something, you're asking many questions and see if they continue with a thread of questions and answer. And obviously they don't. In general, I think you can play a lot with your favorite personal assistants and see the limits at the moment. They are making progress, but yes, understanding speech in general is yet to be done. Learning correlations, especially blue correlations, once more. So this is what is currently done with machine learning systems. So you give some data as input, and in output, you get some answer. In this case, yeah, you will recognize a cat from a dog. This is a very, very efficient learning system, so you can get an answer from it. But it's really learning correlation. It's not learning causality. Causality, for example, if you take this from the Spurious Correlation website, which is a very nice website, I would say, you see that with 95% confidence, you can predict the crude oil import from Norway you can predict the driver's kill in collision with trains from the crude imports from Norway. Okay, you can predict that, 95%, you can learn this. And so you give the number of, the total of crude oil imports from Norway in 1 year, and then you will get the numbers of driver kill in a collision with train. It will work. Yes, okay. But you haven't learned causality. Huh? Learning causality is much more complicated. So at the moment, it's really a big challenge for AI people, not to stick with learning correlations, as all the systems do, but trying to understand things. But this needs more than just putting the data in and out. Learning from millions of examples, this is how we do it, how people process image, speech, data, etc. So we give millions of examples, you train a big network, and then you get some answers. It's very efficient, but you need a lot of computing power. You use a lot of energy. And we don't do like this. Humans, we don't do like this. I suggest that you read the book by Stanislas Dehaene, which is called Apprendre. A very, very interesting book on how people learn and on how children learn and how machines learn. Very, very enlightening book. So this is taken from an example from an INRIA team in Bordeaux, where they try to learn with a very, very small number of examples by interacting with human users, which is, once again, it's called developmental robotics. It's much more difficult than just learning from millions of examples, but ultimately that will be very useful. Okay, I already talked about autonomous driving. So at the moment, most cars are level 2, I would say, or most autonomous cars, not most cars. Tesla says they're level 3, well, but they still have some problems, I guess. Going beyond level 4 and 5, where you can really sleep in the car and ask it to go somewhere and then let it drive you there. So as I said earlier, PSA just decided to not to do it. We will see how it goes. In INRIA's White Book on Autonomous and Connected Vehicles, we say that it won't be before 2040 for level 5, but we will see. I'm a bit concerned by level 4, which is the vehicle is able to behave everywhere, almost everywhere in all situations, but not in all situations. So imagine that you are driving on a two-way road and you are overtaking a big bus and on a hill, and then a car comes on the other side, and then the machine says, "Okay, I don't know, please do it." Please do it yourself and wake up and and save the car. I think we have to be careful about that. We are able to, we can specialize AI, so like the Amazon Echo, the Google Home, etc. They do one thing very well. They process your request. They process your speech and are able to raise questions to databases, to other systems, to web-based systems, etc., in order to answer. But this is the only thing that they do. They just process your speech. They are not really that intelligent. Then the answer comes from normal processing systems. As opposed to strong and general AI, for example, with HAL in Space Odyssey, or this robot from Blake and Mortimer, where Professor Sato tells him to go and find Ulrich and kill him, etc. So this, in order to be able to do that, to do planning, environment assessment, replanning, action, etc., movement. So you need a lot of competences that are very, very difficult to reach. Propose decisions from data. So the systems are now able to propose, as Dominique said, by the way, most of our systems are now able to propose decisions on data on many subjects, but explain the decision proposed is, a lot of people are trying now to do this, but it's not yet done. And imagine the discussion with your bank's chatbot. Okay, did I get my loan? No. Okay, but can you tell me why I didn't get my loan? No. But why can't you tell me why I didn't get my loan? Well, because I'm an artificial system trained with a lot of data, and I cannot produce explanations. Okay, well, thank you. At least is there some kind of proof that your decision is correct? No, we are not able to prove any such systems. Or have you been certified by somebody? Oh, no, there are no certification possible for learning systems. So behind this, of course, you have this question of trust in systems. So if we don't get the trust, we won't get, the people will not accept the system, they will reject them. So we have to be careful about that. That might be the next winter. So big question for society. Huh? Some challenges for the society. At the moment, we are working, and there will be some announcements probably later today. There is a G7 ministers meeting today on digital and on AI. They will start. I hope that they will announce sooner or later the creation of this panel, international panel on AI, which is more or less the same idea as the International Panel on Climate Change. So people wanting to work together on the big questions raised by AI. And let's say these are more or less the preliminary list of questions that this panel could debate in the following years. Everyone recognizes that these are the big questions at the moment. I say trustworthy AI, so explanation, proof, certification, validation, verification, all this. Okay, it doesn't matter if the AI system is only for advising you which movie to watch. Okay, you can just not like it and watch another movie. But if it's for operating a nuclear power plant, driving a vehicle, saying if you have cancer or not, or investing in yeah, you need some kind of trust. Okay, yeah. The big question of how we accept the delegation of decisions to machine. There will be a lot of decisions proposed by machines, okay, but and there's a human operator behind, very good, but they might also take the decision themselves more and more. This is what the European Commission expert group calls human agency and oversight, so that we keep control of what goes on in this machine. So that's a very important subject too. Yeah, Dominique also mentioned the question of future of work and economic impacts. We have progressed since the paper by Frey and Osborne from 2013, which was looking at 700 jobs and saying this 20% will disappear in the forthcoming years. We know that it's not going to be like this. We know that it's more a question of tasks, not of jobs. So some tasks will be automated, but the jobs will probably remain. But in fact, we don't really know. So we need a lot of experimentation. At the moment, people are experimenting to look at how work is evolving with thanks to AI. Question of biases and equality, yeah, this is very important. You know that when you train systems from data, if the data has biases, then you get the biases as output for your new data. So there's a big movement also in the AI community on how to analyze the data that we have and how to detect if there is bias, if it's biased or not. So a big research subject and a big subject for the society. And then, okay, cybersecurity and privacy, which is for all systems. Governance of data, since all this depends, a lot of these AI applications depend on data, then the governance of this data is very important. And it's only by addressing all those social challenges that we will be able to have and trust applications in all these key domains such as health, mobility, environment, industry, leisure, etc. A lot of people are writing about that. There's a big movement worldwide. So, for example, you have the Montreal Declaration from a few months ago. You have the European expert group, which published this ethics guideline for trustworthy AI a few weeks ago. The Japanese also have a document. Germany, they did a very nice document on the ethics of autonomous vehicles. That was a bit like 1 year ago. Sorry. Yeah. The GAFAM has started this initiative 3 years ago, the partnership on AI also. And then I was talking about the creation of an IPCC of AI, which will be called the International Panel on AI, etc., etc. All these documents are really worth looking at. So the ethics guideline from the high-level expert group from the European Commission. This one from Germany, the Ethics Commission on Automated and Connected Driving, they involved car manufacturers, equipment manufacturers, etc. So they know what they are talking about. If you don't know about the AI Now report, Kate Crawford and her colleagues, every year they publish a report on the risks encountered by AI, the problems met, etc. Very interesting. There's one each year. This one was published recently. There's also this nice document completed for the European Parliament by some colleagues at INRIA, Claude Castelluccia and Daniel Métayer, on what are the implications of algorithmic decision-making, so how we should address this question of delegating decisions to machine. Really full of information and interesting remarks. And last, but I think not least, this one is really not known, I think. In French. It comes from the Centre Interarmé de Concepts, de Doctrine et d'Expérimentation, so that's the French Army think tank. And it's a 30-page document, but on page 25, more or less it says in a very sophisticated way that the French Army should not make autonomous weapons, don't make killer robots. And this is what the minister said when she was giving her speech on her AI plan 1 month ago in Saclay. So she more or less was building on the recommendation made by this document. So that for the moment, and I'm pleased about that, France is not intending to use autonomous weapons. So just a few words about what I'm doing at the moment. We are addressing this in France, so we are not the only ones, but we try to be among the best. So what we, for the National AI Research Program, we want to be one of the top 5 in AI in the world. So concretely, it means that we want to be number 5, because the four first seats are really difficult to reach. USA, China, UK, etc., Japan. We want to make France the European leader in research in AI, so we are putting a lot of efforts into that, and we are mobilizing the entire system. So this is just a global view of everything that we do. Of course, the main action is well known here, which is the network of 3 IA institutes. There's one in Grenoble, MEAI, and I know that Eric Bossier, the head of this institute, is here, and we will be talking later. So 4 of these have been selected, as you probably know: Paris, Grenoble, Toulouse, and Côte d'Azur. But also a lot of other measures like research and education chairs in other sites, like a lot of new PhDs. We want to double the number of PhD students in a few years. Computing facility, all this needs a lot of computing facilities, so there's the first computer installed this year. It's now being tested at Idris. It's a 14 petaflop machine with 1,044 GPUs, which will be open to the community. And in a few years, there will be the second level, the European level, with a big powerful machine. We put more money into EANA for supporting AI, and also we emphasize the cooperation, international cooperation, in particular with Germany, and also some other measures for different, less important things that I will not mention, although they are quite significant. And just a small words on the AI challenges. So there's a lot of interest on these challenges. 2 of them were selected a few months ago. One is on what is called the reliable and certifiable AI. It's 30 million funding for that, and the other 30 million funding is for improving medical diagnosis with AI. And the third challenge, which was just selected a few days ago, is not totally AI. It's a challenge on cybersecurity, but it will involve a lot of AI. So with this, I will stop, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Bertrand. I will just mention that even if, you're optimistic, even if we don't have autonomous weapons, France has not signed yet the convention, neither ratified it. You know, it will be a long process. Immediately, we will start the first round table, and I will call here Cordelia Schmidt, Thierry Beauchamp, Éric Monchalin, Luca Naxa, Henri Sanson. Will you please join me here? Asseyez-vous. Nous sommes voilà ici et voilà. Vous partagerez les micros, il n'y en a pas un pour chacun. This round table is AI as a rupture technology. And of course, I asked all our panelists what they thought about this very sentence. Cordelia, we'll start with you. You're Director of Research at INRIA, Grenoble-Rhône-Alpes. You are an IEEE Fellow, which is an honor. Since 2013, you have been editor-in-chief. You still are the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Computer Vision. It stopped. Well. And of course, it's a position which shows how renowned you are worldwide. You have started recently to work part-time with DeepMind, a Google subsidiary. And you count numerous prizes, I'm not going to tell all of them, among which Grand Prix INRIA Académie des Sciences 2016. So, Cordelia, when do you point the rupture in your field as a researcher? Something like 5 years ago, or before that, or even more recently? Try it.
Okay, yeah, I would say, I mean, that's what I told you last night. I would say 5 years ago would be really the point where things started to work much better than before, right? Where you can really pinpoint that now things really start to work, and like things which you could not think of 10 years ago that they would work, they started really to be feasible.
And how do you, how would I say, how do you live this change? Does it create a lot of questions even in research labs, or are they so happy that it happens finally? I talked about the winter of AI, and now it changed totally. And that's the feeling we have when we are not researchers.
No, I think for me it's very nice because basically things really finally start to work. So obviously the techniques have changed over time, but that's normal. And so for me it's really nice that now things which, for example, Bertrand showed this result for video, which 5 years ago didn't really work, but now really they start to work, and you can really use these things and get information out of it and really get things which start to work. And it's not just it works on a few examples, but it really works in general. And so I think it's very nice. And there's still, like, of course, many open research questions, right? So today I would say we have addressed the first level. We can recognize simple patterns, basically. That's what we have today. And the next steps are really to go towards more intelligent systems, right, which can predict things and interpret things and not just recognize simple objects.
Would you say that you're foreseeing the next few years as just, you know, incrementing, changing a little bit things? Bertrand showed that now for face recognition, it's under 3% of failure. How do you picture the forthcoming years? Is it possible, or do you have to count in months, or you don't know what will happen in another research lab?
So I think for now people are more doing these incremental things. So basically that's kind of the trend, the current trend, and what people are now looking for is to move to the next level, right? We have really these more intelligent systems and not just recognize. So ImageNet, what Bertrand showed, is just classifying images into different labels. And so that's far from really understanding what's in the world and what is in images. And so now basically the next level is really to interpret what's going on, right? One example he showed was this image captioning, where you have an idea what's going on, but ideally you would want to go much further and really say, what is the intentions on somebody and who is interacting and what's really the content. For example, just describing a full video with what's in there, that's something which today is not possible. If I tell people it will be possible in 5 years, people also start to question it. So that's kind of one of the challenges we have. And then the other thing which you mentioned is to go up to 100%, right? That's the thing which you really want, which you cannot guarantee today, and to explain what the decisions are. That's something also which is super important and is completely open how to do this. And I think these are the things which in the next 5 years you want to address, and then in the long term you want to really have more intelligent systems, right? Things which can learn over time, which do lifelong learning and things like that. So that's actually the things, the challenges which are open.
So we have to follow what happens in the next 5 years, which seems very long in a way. Luca Naxa, you're CEO of NeoVision. You founded NeoVision in 2014 as a consulting company in AI. And you say you help all sorts of companies of all kinds. One of your clients is Schneider Electric, but maybe you could talk about others. You're an official consultant in AI for BPI France. It's still the case?
Yeah, it's still the case.
And I wondered, you say that you came from a lab, from a research lab, and then you started a company. And you say that for your clients, you have ready-to-use technology. Is this really true?
There is a lot of work to create ready-to-use technology. First of all, we need to very well understand the environment, the constraints, the jobs of our clients. It's very important to understand what kind of data can be used to train the artificial intelligence. And this is a lot of work, and that's why we do consulting. We just don't just do software development. You cannot just tell someone that you can create an artificial intelligence from nothing. You need data. You need to understand what is the problem, and if you have the data that can represent the problem. So,
Do you think your clients know well, maybe they know what they want or what their goal is, but do they know really what it's all about, or do you have clients who really are lost and it's a rupture technology for them?
It's rupture technology for them too, I guess. I have a lot of different kind of clients. I have startups that know very well new technologies. I have small to big companies, and they all have a different kind of maturity with this technology. So we need to help them to understand what is the process to create an artificial intelligence, what kind of data we need, what kind of bias we can find in the data. And so it's...
Did things change in 5 years since you started?
A little bit, but not so far.
Well, so you think it's a bit too slow?
Yeah, I
People
guess.
don't get acquainted with the new technology rapidly enough.
For sure, there is a lot of new things that come in artificial intelligence. In scientific paper, you find a lot of new things. The last one in the 4 years is the generative adversarial network, for example. If you know the website this person doesn't exist.com, you can find images of face of people that doesn't exist, and it's very convincing. So right now we have new kind of artificial intelligence that can generate data, and this is only one example of very impressive new technologies that we can create. And people need to understand what use case you can create with this technology. So we need to help them to understand what we can do with technology. So
give us precisions about your firm. How many are you now, and how many will you be in 1 year or 2 years?
I can understand. I can answer the first question. We are 19 right now. We was 10 last year, and I don't know how many we will be in 1 year, but I guess something like twice the number. But it's very difficult to say because I don't want to explode in the growth of my company. Right now I want to be very sure to have to hire the good people. And to form them.
Is it difficult to find them, or here in
Yeah,
Grenoble you have no problem?
In Grenoble we are very lucky because we have a lot of good schools, like NCMAC, for example, which is my school. It's not why I guess it's a good school, but it's a fact. People that come from this school are very well prepared to understand mathematics, statistics, machine learning, and informatics. So we have a lot of we have a good chance here to have a good data scientist to find this kind of profile. But this job is very new. We need to form the people to understand all this kind of mistake you can do in artificial intelligence projects. So right now the market is very hard to find good people.
So here is the AI as a rupture technology. Eric Monchalin, you're vice president, head of machine intelligence at Atos.
Yep.
Until now, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's
it's
correct.
okay, yeah.
It's correct. And you're responsible for solidifying new technological and business directions for big data and security global business line. Wow, what a lot of work. You had numerous R&D positions in several companies, and you managed multi-tens billion euros project with big teams. And you say that you're focused on customer wishes. So for you, when we prepared this roundtable, you told me that it's less a rupture than a continuum. That's how you see AI with Atos.
Yeah.
With 3 stages.
Yeah. Okay. So the first point is if you are looking this story from a business perspective and a company perspective, the beginning of the story is starting from, I would say, the big data revolution, moving the data from the silos to a joint repository, offering the ability to correlate, and it, as Bertrand shown, you have to take care when you start to correlate data because you could make a lot of mistakes, but also to link all these data together to move from data to information, and then from information to knowledge, and to enter in the artificial worlds. And when you start to have all this data, you can start to run analytics, and moving from data to information to knowledge, you start to enter in the artificial worlds. Artificial intelligence world. So from, I would say, a global perspective, it's more continuity than a rupture. But if you are looking what happened for digital revolution, we had the, I would say, first digital revolution in the 70s, a long time ago, with data driving processes. And it was the time for ERPs, SAP, etc. And it was the beginning of business intelligence, which is the ancestor of big data, but with a big constraints, creating all these data silos. And then we have the second revolutions, data driving customer experience and customer satisfactions, and it is well mastered by all GAFAs. We mentioned US one, but we don't have to forget Alibaba, Baidu in China. So it's not only US, but also China. It's fully linked to retail worlds and to web sale mechanisms. And in terms of research, it's really a key point for all these companies. And I really feel that for Europe, especially, it's very, very difficult to recover and to be at the state of art as this company and to compete in this research field. Now we are entered in a third digital wave, which is data driving businesses. Mm-hmm. And it means also that these challenges are coming out of the retail world to go within B2B, business to business activities like industry, agriculture, healthcare, all the new field you mentioned. And depending where are these companies with all these revolutions, it could be a continuity or it could be a big rupture or a big disruption. So from us, our own standpoint as a company is a continuum, but for our customers, some still have silos, some are just jumping in data analytics, some are already managing knowledge, etc. So in the past, I would say, how to take value from data information to conduct their business, there are very different distance from what we could do today from a technology standpoint.
Yeah, you mentioned that even big companies can be very vulnerable. They don't, maybe they don't really know at what stage they are.
Yeah. The topic there is that for a company, most of the time, as long as you are not in a big danger in front of your company, you are waiting.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Uber, Booking, Airbnb, etc. We are seeing companies disrupting their worlds. And such story could happen in every field today. And if you are not prepared, you will not go fast enough to survive. So you are a big company, but with, I would say, agile feet. So it's difficult situations, and it starts to be realized, but not so enough. And I think I am back to what Luca was saying. Yeah. Some companies are very aware and are still working. Some are not checked enough, I would say, to start their road on this story.
And maybe you share the same experience, that some people might even ask you, what can I do with my data? They don't even know how to capitalize on that.
Yeah, but I would say that is a very bad question. Because if you start your thought by what can I do with data you will fail? Because the best question is, what are my challenges? Where I have to improve, and then how I can do it, and will my data help me? And there is a good order to ask you the right questions.
And for you, AI is a mean in a way. It's not the goal.
It's a capability to help you to achieve your objectives.
Okay. Thierry Beauchamp, you're director of AI strategy at ST Microelectronics. And beforehand, you were R&D director for more than 2 decades at this same company.
Yes.
Yeah. And you have an extensive experience in semiconductor industry, obviously, and organizing teams for research. I hope in a strategic manner. I think that's what you're looking for. So you used that sentence, and you told me that even 1 hour ago. ST enables AI on the edge. That's your motto.
Absolutely.
What does it mean for the audience? What does it mean, enables AI on the edge? On the edge.
Yeah, first of all, on the edge might be having a different meaning, whether we are talking with my predecessor or whether we are talking with what I call the edge. For some people, the edge is just the gateway. That means this server that is making the link between the cloud and your premises, or if you are an industrial, or your home, if this is your home gateway. What we call the edge is rather the object. It could be the watch, it could be the car, it could be a camera that is making some smart city duty or things like this. And what is interesting is that we are rather addressing AI from a different point of view than what we have been hearing so far. That means instead of talking about big data, about cloud-based intelligence, we are talking about bringing this intelligence to the object. That means very close to the sensor. The fact is that we want to make intelligent the object, and I believe that there is a very nice definition of what is the intelligence. This was made by a person called Niels Nielsen, and it was at the end of the 50s. And this person said the intelligence for an entity is just this ability to understand the environment and react, to behave within this environment. And this is what we want to do. Enabling the AI means that we want to help our customers to make existing application or to develop new application, bringing more intelligence to what they do. Typically, we have an example in industrial with Sagem, for example, where we have been able, on an existing solution, to bring some intelligence to make this application more powerful, more efficient. And while we do this, we start to bring some tools that will enable someone who has a pre-trained network to map it on an existing microcontroller from ST.
So what you mean, and you gave me this example also, is having sensors, intelligent sensors in factories.
Absolutely.
To predict failures, for example. So that's what you
That's one example that is making predictive maintenance. By the way, it's not necessarily mapping a neural network. It's more machine learning, I would say traditional. It's clustering, but yes, you can learn what is actually the good way one machine will operate, and you can detect when something is becoming abnormal, and then flag that there is probably something wrong that is happening. Mm-hmm. This is one example, but we have, of course, plenty of different ones.
That's what you would call smart industry. That's the new trend. But you have everything, smart city, smart home, but everything will be smart.
Yeah, we are smart everywhere. And actually, we are smart everywhere because our belief is that, ST wants to make your life augmented. So we want to, wherever there is some electronics, we want to bring something and add some features, some capability, enhance what is doing. And the way we want to address this although, you know, we're very involved in autonomous driving through our automotive division with some big names in this arena, but we had decided to come from the object, because today we are the leader in the general purpose MCU. We have more than 60,000 customers in the world, and we believe that we can leverage this presence to come, demystifying somehow AI. AI does not necessarily require that you have big machine, that we have teraflops available engine. We are coming from something where you can run some existing application on an MCU, and this is what we are bringing.
Before giving the floor to Henri Sanson, if you have any question, I will take some question afterwards. So prepare them, think about them. Henri Sanson, you're Director of Research, would I say Data and Knowledge? That's how you call it?
Yes.
At Orange Labs. And you lead the technology research in the areas of AI, data science, decision support, blah, blah, blah. Plenty of things, mathematics, audiovisual. How do you manage to do all these things at the same time? How many are you? Tell me again, in your Orange Labs?
We are a little more 100 researchers on these topics, which is really mathematics and technology focused.
And young people, about 140 in thesis or something like that?
Yes, this concerns the research, Orange Research overall. We have 140 PhD students present at a given time, but for covering all the topics, network research, IoT research, also sociology research.
And for you, the AI is linked mainly to conversational natural language, optimization of the auditory recognition. These are your main aims, your main objectives and difficulties.
Well, in fact, we have different objectives, and we work on different technologies or solutions. In fact, when we speak of AI, in fact, we mix very different things. In fact, we have what people call data mining, data analytics, which have been done for many years. In fact, it
and we called them with other names in the old days. No. Data mining.
Data mining is still used.
How old is the expression? 5 years, 10 years?
Yes, it's more than
20 years. Cordelia, 20 years. It's old. Yeah.
Yes, but maybe more than that. Today we speak of data science. It's more elegant, but we have to be aware of the distinction. You have data mining on one side, and you have what I call anthropomorphic artificial intelligence, and what market player call cognitive services, which is speech recognition, natural language understanding, natural language processing, conversational agents. So this AI tries to mimic, to replicate, in fact, the cognitive capabilities of human beings. When you speak of data mining, you want to address some specific business problems. So you collect the data, you interview the business expert, and you build, in fact, a mathematical model which is dedicated to solve this problem. For instance, you want to do some churn prediction, or you want to predict the appetence of your customer for some of your products you sell. This is really data mining. So we have been doing data mining for years, both at the level of research, but also at the operational level. First, we have started on marketing. Marketing was one of our first internal customer for data mining solutions, and now it is spreading for fraud detection, for network diagnosis. And we have been researching for more than 15 years on anthropomorphic AI, on speech, on visual recognition, on natural language understanding, and it is clear that there has been the revolution of deep learning that really boosted, in fact, the performances, and now it has become, in fact, really usable in our real services, in fact, which was not possible, I would say, 5 years ago. We have to be aware that 5 years ago, we had to design use case specific speech recognition, for instance, that was able to recognize about 2,000-3,000 of words. Now we speak of millions or dozens of millions of words that speech recognition, our own speech recognition, is able to recognize. So
what you're telling us is that that change happened in 5 years only?
yes, yes.
That's
Yes, I
That's
can
good.
give you some anecdote. So we develop our own technology, but we also regularly do benchmark of external providers. And in 2015, in fact, we measured the performance of Google speech recognition for voice interaction. And between the April version and the October version, it has gained 30% in word error rate. It's absolutely amazing.
something Luca mentioned, and maybe it's the same for you, and I don't know for Cordelia, is the rate and the acceleration of studies. In your field, do you cooperate with other research labs, academic ones, and your competitors? In fact, the Facebook or Google, they have open algorithm that you can use. How do you interact with the, I would say, the world ecosystem?
Well, we are doing like I suspect everybody is doing that. We of course leverage all these open source frameworks and all these data sets, because data is very important. And we also collaborate selectively with some academic teams, and maybe essentially with academic teams. With industrial teams, it's more difficult because of the problem of data sharing is very complicated, in fact. So.
Okay. Are there any questions? And if there are, please raise your arm so that I can see you. Well, either they're asleep or bored. No question? How can that be? Okay. So I will... at last. Thank you.
Listening to you guys, except maybe for Thierry, how much does hardware architecture matter to AI?
Who wants to answer? Eric Monchalin.
I believe it's, and maybe you will have some comments, but I believe it's a big challenge even today. We mentioned that we did a lot of progresses these last 5 years, and one of the reasons is the progresses of the computation capabilities. Now, the question is, artificial intelligence is a lot of data, so it's how to avoid to move data to computation and rather move computation to data. And I feel it's really key for the future. And we still have a lot of research in front of us, and even moving the paradigms, we are using still the beginning of the IT. And as it has been mentioned, I feel that it's key that the intelligence will move on the field, because one more time, it will not be affordable to move data to the computations. And it is one reason for which I fully agree on what has been done, or what will happen on the field. And there is a still big challenge to have the right architectures to run this type of algorithm to run artificial intelligence. But I feel that this distribution on the field is really key for smart industry, Industry 4.0, and it's a real opportunity for Europe and France in particular to reindustrialize our country. So there are very big challenges there.
Well, I believe that hardware is extremely important. We have seen that people today, they try to match AI on FPGAs or CPU or GPUs. Actually, some have been extremely successful on GPUs. But clearly, there is a need to make the most appropriate hardware to match the way we want to implement the algorithms. And necessarily, it will be a mix in between hardware and software. So the partitioning is extremely important. And what is also extremely important is that we are talking about applications that are performing and that are making things that look to be magic or fantastic. At the end of the day, this consumes also a lot of energy. So all all of the challenge will be also to make sure that we can reduce this. And one of the targets that ST is having is to bring this to the object and make this possibly battery life. So therefore, the hardware will be extremely important. I believe you're well placed to address this challenge as well, Loïc.
Another answer or another question? Another question. Here, over there, fourth row.
Thank you. Algorithms are a main part of the intelligence artificial, together with data and so on. Do you have any strategy for protecting your algorithm through patent, secret, open source license strategy or so on? Could you give us some view about your protection strategy?
Who wants to answer? Eric Monchalin?
So on our side, we are not necessarily creating so much algorithms. We are mainly creating, I would say, cooking books to how to assemble algorithms all together to solve some customer challenges. And yes, for sure, we are patenting and these algorithms because it's part of it's a way also to protect our businesses. Nevertheless, we have, I think, most of the actors in this area a strong open source mindset. Most of the frameworks of the algorithms are available from open source, coming from very large companies like Google, Facebook, or others. So a lot of our stuff is open source. But at some point, when we create, I would say, a strong value from the way we do assemble all these technologies to create value for our customer, we are patenting for sure.
Well, it's a very good question. I participated last week to a seminar dedicated to IP protection and which focused on AI. And for me, it's still an open question how to protect AI with either secret or patent, because you have many factors against intellectual property protection. Because first, as you said, there is this fashion of sharing. In fact, people share software, they share data in some area. The performance of a technology is a combination of algorithm and data, and there is a so amazing rhythm of progress in AI, or at least in some areas of AI, that we are almost sure that the principle that we are implementing today will be obsolete maybe in 2 or 3 years. So what does it mean to file a patent that is supposed to last for 20 years if in some, within a few years, in fact, it will be completely obsolete? So it's an open question.
Cordelia, seen from a research lab, does this question is this question a needed one, or you don't patent anything?
No, we don't. In general, we don't patent, and my personal philosophy is to put everything open source, because that makes your work much more visible, right? If people read your paper and can reuse the algorithm, they see that it works, then they're much more likely to reuse your approach. So for us, it's actually good publicity to put things as open source.
Even little bits of code inside the algorithm? I'm asking maybe a silly question. Even something that you don't want to share? No, maybe not.
No, I think
maybe not in public
not
labs.
in the spirit. I mean, maybe some people do, because they it's good to keep some advantage. But in our case, it's the only thing is, if there would be some industrial constraints or it's an industrial project, then obviously we have to kind of coordinate with the industrial partner. But otherwise, if it's just my choice, I would just say put it open, and it's good for the progress of the community as well, because you don't want to hold back things. And the same thing for data. Obviously, it's always more tricky, because data, you have all these copyright issues, you have all these protection mechanisms, and so you cannot put any data just on the web. But if possible, then yes, again, it's something which is super important also to have this publicly available benchmarks to compare algorithms. So I think that's something everybody agrees on. And it's getting harder and harder these days with all the protection laws, right? You have to be super careful. You cannot just put any images on the web and say they're usable. So
Thierry Beauchamp, you wanted to react. And Eric Monchalin, I think you have to add something.
Yeah, maybe one point is that I believe that this is not necessarily the algorithm or the networks that need to be patented. To me, what will make the difference is the way you implement that. And the way you implement that, back to the question before, was what kind of hardware you are going to implement. This you might patent, or you will not patent because you want to keep it more secret. This will be also the quality of the data and the quality of the learning that you are going to make. So I believe that what will make the difference is not necessarily the algorithm, and maybe we are not inventing that much new algorithm today, is really the quality of the way you are going to implement. And of course, if you want to implement this on the object, you will have also to consider all things that are linked to embedded way of doing things. Again, the data is very important. And one other complement is that we were talking about accuracy, and I believe that we are not necessarily going to look at the biggest accuracy, going to the 100%. Maybe we need to find the right trade-off, and again, what will make the difference is which accuracy you can reach that will fulfill the need of your application, but will make that your power will be reduced. Because once again, our target is to make this as low consumption as possible.
Eric Monchalin.
Maybe one more comment, because there is not necessarily an opposition between, I would say, patenting and having an open source approach. And quite often we are patenting capabilities we are pushing in open source. And why? Because as Cornelia mentioned, sharing this area is quite important to move faster and faster. And you can patent to attack competition, or you can patent to protect you against competition, meaning that when you are attacked by someone, most of the time in your own patent portfolio, you can find out some patents that have been violated by this competition or competitor, and you can enter in negotiation. So depending on how you do use patents and what is your strategy, there is not necessarily opposition between open source approach, sharing approach, and patenting.
Now, I think we have to wrap up, unless you would have a final remark, something you really want to share with the audience. And then, well, thank you very much. I think we have to thank our panelists. Thank you. Je ne sais pas si vous pouvez descendre. Merci à vous. Merci. And we move on to the next roundtable, Public Initiatives to Boost Innovation with AI. And I call Professor Eric Gossier, Mr. Klaus Hapfast, Philippe Fournant, and Philippe Wieczorek. On your notes, on your files, you might have Philippe Moutou. Philippe Moutou could not come and is replaced by another Philippe, by Philippe Fournant. Bonjour messieurs, installez-vous, on est un peu moins nombreux. Vous me mettez où vous voulez là, voilà. Asseyez-vous. No women. Well, you know, in AI, the last figures are only 12% of women. So I expect that if there's a doubling, as Bertrand mentioned, a doubling of students, that there will be women among them. I think it's, it's the future, and they should be there. Where are they? So thank you for being with us this morning. Eric Gossier, Director of the LIG Informatics Lab at the University of Grenoble. Your background is in theoretical computer science and applied mathematics. Well, both, to start with. You joined at times IBM, or you worked a little bit with them, Xerox Research Center Europe. That was a major work of you. In Palo Alto, also, you spent 6 months in Palo Alto. There research center in the old days. Does it exist? I'm not so sure. I'm not sure. I'm looking at one of my ex-colleagues. Yes, it still exists. Okay. And you started as a professor in 2006, and you were head of a team in modelizing and machine learning between 2011 and 2015. And of course, that's one of the major announcements these recent days and weeks. On the 24th of April, it was officially announced that the Multidisciplinary Institute in Artificial Intelligence, you have to tell me, pronounces MIAI? Little cat. Will you have a cat? No. And it will, it was confirmed then on this 24th of April, and it is one of these 4 institutes Bertrand Braunschweig talked about again. Your budget will be 18.5 million euros per year during 4 years. That's right. So, what will can you tell us finally? Well, you're not going to say that it's a bad public initiative, but is it enough money?
It's never enough. It's pronounced MIAI because it's a Japanese name that denotes or refers to a meeting between a man and a woman to discuss the possibility of a wedding. And we thought it was, say, a nice analogy because we try to gather partners from industrial and academic world to foster new collaborations. So that's why it's pronounced MIAI. Okay. The public money we have for the moment, that is the money that the state is putting in our university, in our institute, is for the moment around 19 million for 4 years. Mm-hmm. So, okay, it can be seen as not enough compared to competitive initiatives in other countries, but it's still a lot of money with respect to the kind of money that we are dealing with from the state in France. And it does, I believe, we have the opportunity to really set up something that will change the way we are doing AI in Grenoble.
How will it change?
One of the main changes that we expect are the fact that we will have a place where people can be gathered together and can do very rapidly and smoothly some scientific and technology watch. And it's a main problem in AI right now to be able to follow everything that is happening. It's not really possible for one person. So the idea would be to be able to share that and then to have teams working together on a lot of different subjects, so to advance better, to advance faster.
Tell us again, for an institute like that, it's mainly a coordination, or it's working in-house, in the institute itself, with its own groups?
Okay, so it's in between in the sense that it's a virtual institute. Okay, so it has no legal entity, but the teams that have been set up and the researchers that have been involved in the institute from both academies and industries, they are really part of the institute, and they were not working together. They were not funded at that level for the research. So it's new in that sense. So there will definitely be something that will happen within the institute, but legally it has no legal.
Can we picture these institutes like having a sort of heart and influence around? So how many people finally are involved in this new adventure?
So yes, I think it's a good way to view things. So the core comprises roughly 200 permanent researchers, but there are a lot of people that will be associated to this research around, and that will be partly funded by the institute, I hope. It's difficult to say how many, but we hope as many as possible. Of course, we try to be as comprehensive, as inclusive as possible when we build up such institutes. But the will of the government was really to have institutes that can play a role at the world level. So not to to be too inclusive, but really to focus on the strengths of a given site.
And you mentioned, first of all, research, but education is...
Yes. Yes. So we have three main missions, and the second and the fourth secondary one. The three main missions are research, establish a worldwide research center in AI. The second mission is training, and the objective is to double the number of persons trained in AI in Grenoble and around Grenoble. The third mission is technology transfer and innovation, and the goal is really to help industries adopt AI technologies. Of course, a lot of them have already adopted that, as we have seen in the previous roundtable. But some of them have not, and so work together with our industrial partners on that. I want to mention that most of the industrial partners are also involved in the research axis. And when we talk about innovation, we talk about also creating new startups in AI, and that will be one of our objectives. So that's the third mission. And the fourth mission that is important, and that is related to one point you mentioned during your introduction, is the fact that we would like to help citizens better understand what is AI, what are its limitations, what are its benefits, its disadvantages, and so on.
Okay, we'll come back to these points. Philippe Wieczorek, you're software director at Minalogic Innovation Cluster since 2012. Is that right? And well, when was AlphaGo DeepMind? Was it in 2012 or 2014? I haven't.
Which one? Sorry.
Well, you know, when AlphaGo managed to be better than any human. Oh, I can't remember. This 2012 is surprising. So, Minalogic, we have to say again that it's a global innovation cluster for digital technologies. It has more than 400 industrial members, 12 research centers and universities, 15 local government agencies. I always wonder how these people manage with all these partners. 16 economic development organizations, banks, private investors. And you personally, you have 20 industrial patents. So you know what it means to be in industry also. You started at McGill University and in Salion. It helps to be not too far from Grenoble, although we know we have to be careful. We're in Grenoble and talking about Lyon and vice versa. And you had numerous positions in R&D, notably at HP. So tell us in a concrete manner how a global innovation cluster helps to find out the best solutions for people. Because I have this feeling as a journalist that some people really have to be guided. Where do they have to ask their questions, not to be lost when it comes to AI and they want to boost their own innovation?
Sure. So prior to answering your question, I authored 20 patents. Unfortunately, I do not own them, because if I were owning them, I would not be here because I would be really rich. So sorry for that. So yeah, Minalogic, as you mentioned, is an innovation cluster. Basically, the art of our work is to assemble collaborative projects, helping companies and also laboratories to find some funding to speed up their innovation. You talk about guidance. It's true that we are in France, and we all know that we have a high level of tax, and some of these tax return in form of subvention. There are so many ways of getting subvention that if you go on your own, you will be quickly get lost. So basically, we are here to build with you your funding strategy, whether it's public or private, and we can certainly help on that.
Okay. Tell us how you see the implementation of MIAI coming here. How do you relate?
Okay, so basically, how we are an innovation cluster like Mineralogic is in the middle of academics and industry. So basically, where MII can benefit more from Mineralogic is in the relationship between industry and university, basically. So we are mostly focused on helping industrials to find the adequate laboratory, and also to get some funding for working for that, because it's not obvious working with for these two type of animal working together. It's pretty difficult, but it's feasible. And when the initial barrier, language, schedule barrier, because they are not necessarily thinking at the same level of scheduling or planning. Once we get rid of this barrier, they continue to work forever, I would say, because both of them benefit for each other. So that's the nice part of our job. So it's triggering that, basically, enabling that.
One thing it's related to what you just said, is that when it comes to deep tech, people in research labs, at least they have to understand that market is really different. So you have to guide them, particularly in those fields.
Yeah, there's really something that startups or researcher, I mean, their work is to provide disruptive innovation. So whether it's useful or not, I would say it's not necessarily their most preoccupation. But when creating a startup, people should define the question before answering the question. I see too many startups starting with tremendous technology that are probably unique worldwide without having a market in mind. And it's a surprise because for them, it's a surprise because they say, we failed. We had the best technology in the world, but we failed. Yes, I would say, but what for? What your technology was for? So this is something we are trying to inject in startup creation, in companies, basically. Define your market segment, answer the question. To which question are you answering? And it's specifically, it's really true for deep tech, because deep tech is usually disruption. So most of the time there is no market. So we're talking about market education, market shaping. This is the case for AI, because AI, people have really mixed feeling. They are either fearing, they are fond of. So we need to explain what AI does, what it does not, and stop all fantasies around that. So that's one part of Mineralogic will play also in MII as well, or propose to play.
Okay, we come back to that. Philippe Fournon, you're a senior manager at Wavestone, and you replace Philippe Moutou from Thales, who could not come.
I will try, because
but
Philippe
you will
is
try.
Very...
you interact as Wavestone with Thales, but you talk here as Wavestone. Okay, and Wavestone, you will explain again a little bit what Wavestone is, because some people might not really know. But you're a senior manager at Wavestone, and you're responsible for collaborative, innovative projects, and you're involved in innovation management. You have more than 20 years of experience in consulting field.
That's old.
More than that. Okay. And you work with local authorities, regions, metropolitan areas, with companies, and in consortia. And that will be interesting that you explain to us at the European level what can be done. So when we talked before the roundtable, you told me first about something which is a public initiative to boost, well, if I'm not wrong, the economy and development is AI for you. Tell me again to the audience, what is it exactly? I'm not sure I've understood where it starts, where it stops.
Yeah, me too. So I will try to talk about, I'm not here, in fact, to speak about Wavestone, but to try to replace Philippe Moutou, who is a bit unique, to speak about AI for You project. Maybe some of...
Who knows about AI for You? Everybody? Oh, some of them,
some of
but
them.
not many. So you
No,
can
because
really.
we already have around the table some partners of AI for you, INRIA, for instance. Atos and Orange from the previous table are partner of AI for you. And AI for you is in fact a collaborative project. It started beginning of the year in Barcelona, to be precise. And it's one of the pillars of the European AI strategy, the European AI strategy designed by the European Commission. And we are, in fact, a collaborative project that has been selected by the European Commission. And it gathers, for the moment, almost 80 partners all around Europe, because we have 21 countries that are involved in the project. So the idea is, in a nutshell, to try to mobilize the whole AI ecosystem in Europe, which is currently very fragmented between countries, between regions, between researchers, and between companies, for instance, to try to mobilize this ecosystem around what we call an AI on-demand platform that can be a focal point to bring some AI resources, such as components, such as algorithm, such as also the interconnection with other platforms that are working partially on AI or have AI as the main goals. When I'm speaking about platform, you all know, for instance, the BDVA PPP or the Euro Robotic PPP as well. There's also a platform around the language, which is a very important dimension of the AI. And we have also, as not a platform, but a new, very important policy, the DIH, Digital Innovation Hub, that are also very involved in AI dimension, because recently 35 DIH has been appointed as AI, the Digital Innovation Hub. Unfortunately, no one in this region. So we are trying to build this, we are not speaking of the same tenders, in fact. So in fact, we are trying to build this platform in an on-demand platform. So if you want to have, if you have a problem, or if you want to have access to the resources in AI, you should go to this platform, and this platform will provide a number of services, a number of matchmaking possibility or interaction with others that could lead to a more integrated or more collaborative ecosystem in Europe around AI. So the idea is really to foster the competitiveness of Europe through this platform. You mentioned the budget. You have a question about the budget. The budget is not much because it's 20 million euro, but it's a kind of proof of concept. And the idea is to prove the concept during the 3 years we have, and then to hand over the project to another project, and also to work on the sustainability of this platform by, on the one hand, trying to create an AI association, which will be very linked with the AI initiative of the European Commission, and by, on the other hand, by creating a foundation to take over at the end of the project, the platform, and to create a kind of governances that could be a bit new, because we don't want to be in a way caught by any stakeholders or partners. So the idea is really that, and we are also working with 5 vertical stakes in AI, such as explainability. It has been presented during the speech of Enria, so I won't go into the detail. We work also with pilots, industrial pilots. One of them is led, for instance, by Atos about agriculture. And the idea is to prove that the platform has an added value to bring the ecosystem to solve some very concrete challenge around AI. And the last but not least is, there are 2 others, sorry. One is about ethics. We are currently working with the European Commission to make the deep dive assessment of the guideline issued by the high-level expertise group. So the idea is really to push the human-centered AI approach that can be maybe a bit distinctive or differentiator if you compare to China or America, for instance. And the last but not least is to work with SMEs, startups or researchers around what we call open call. The open call are call for proposal or solutions that we are going to design, meaning we need to build this call around thematic. For instance, we can think about healthcare or things like that. We can build also this call around the capability to improve the platform, so what we need as a technology or services to improve our own platform. And those calls will be issued. We have 3 open calls with startup researchers all around Europe that can apply to this and transfer technology program that aim to transform them not only in startups, because we have many startups, but in what we fancy name is scale-up, meaning enterprise which can really grow. And the last but not least, sorry, I'm a bit long, it's working also on a vision for Europe about AI that can be collaborative. That means we are going to build this vision using our platform, our ecosystem, and try also to work with the others platform in order to provide to the European vision a consistent and consolidated vision of what could be the next future of AI in Europe. Sorry, I was a bit long.
Thank you, Philippe, and we'll come back to many of your points. Klaus Hapfast, you're vice chair of the Grenoble-Alpes Metropolitan Council, and dealing with major areas like higher education, research, and innovation. And your work focuses on ensuring an interplay between universities and local authorities and coordinating Grenoble's Smart City initiative. Your background is in physics and mathematics, but you're the political person of that panel. So tell us, what is this initiative, this Smart City initiative? I'm keen of knowing better about this initiative. Klaus.
Thank you. The Smart City is, of course, something where you can pack in a lot of different concepts. Smart city could be, this is the IBM city, a city with big control stand and lots of cameras and lots of sensors, and with a big control stand you get a global overview of what's happening in the city and where you control all public services. It could also be the Google city, the platform city, and this is where AI comes into play. The Google city, where you have lots of data, and in the platform you share resources. You share all sorts of resources and you make them available by putting together offer and demand. And this is a very important concept for transition, a transition we have to do in terms of climate change, in terms of limited resources. We have to go to a local platform economy in Europe and elsewhere in the world, where we learn how to share and how to reuse rather than to possess and to consume. So this is our concept of a smart city, and of course AI plays a major role in it. And one of the reasons, this is why we are now currently actually reformulating our innovation policy, which we formulated last in 2014. We heard about speech recognition. 2014 was a long time ago in terms of AI. So we reformulated. We will work much closer with the local ecosystem by selecting the collaborative projects that will be funded by the local authorities. We will work much more upstream. We'll want to do a lot of experiments we have discussed with ST to be very, very much upstream in the development of new hardware to experiment it in the area of local public services. And we are working on a new data policy, because when we talk about platform economies, it's not only to work with open data only. We need personal data. And that means that we need a data officer who will protect the data, and we will have to look at ethics. And this is where the MIAI comes into play, because it's the only one in France which looks at ethics and law. We will need to address the topics of the ethics, because it's nice to say tech for good, but the current ethics mostly is an ethics where it says good is the best use, the best benefit for big numbers, for everybody. But actually, if you want to make climate change, that's not going to work. You need a different ethics if you want to go to transition. So addressing tech for good, not just the biggest benefit for the biggest number, and then the least benefit for nature and our Earth, that will be topics I hope you will address in MIAI, and that will help us then in tests and very concrete experiments in the smart city to put them to work as a pioneer here in Grenoble.
Yeah, you talked to Eric Gossier, and in fact, when we look at main themes of research, the title for MIAI is AI for Humans and the Environment. So it coincides exactly with what Klaus says. But how, you know, I have a question about organization. How, you know, for researchers, again, they tend to follow their own goals and interests, and you have others. How will you manage to really make people come together? And maybe Philippe can answer too. Eric first, Eric Gossier.
So in creating the institute, we have designed research programs that we believed were important to address, that were of course based on our strengths, but that we believe were important to address. And we did that. It took us roughly 9 months. In between the first discussions on the research programs and then the final version of the proposal. So people were forced to rethink what they were doing. People were forced to look at what the others were doing, whether they could join, group themselves with others, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So that was the part where it's not just business as usual. It's a bit more than that, right from the design phase. And then for how to be sure that this will be followed and that there will be a strong coherence and cohesion between the institutes, we are currently setting up some rules that will be based on finances, on budgets, of course, to help people, or not only help them, but also incite them to follow the rules and to work cohesively.
Before another answer, do you have any question? Please prepare them. We will have some minutes to answer your questions. Philippe Wieczorek.
I fully subscribe to what Eric said. So the point is not to force people to do what they don't want to do. It's good to let researchers search what they're interested in, because this is how disruption comes. I mean, if the companies are instructing researchers in their field of research, I mean, we will lose this disruption. So we need to preserve that. And any state or region or whatever metropolitan area, I mean, it's not their role to force people to do what they don't want to do, but they can incite them to do something. So I would not be surprised to see in the near future to have new tools, new financial tools governed by the public politics, basically, to incite people to work in be nicer with the planet, basically, thanks to AI, for example, or to whatever technology. So that's the way to do it, and that's the way usually they do it. And it's good to do that way.
Indeed, for the economy, for businesses, this is exactly how we do it. But on the other hand, of course, like in any other city or country, we are elected, and when it comes to public policies and public spaces, we actually also use regulation, like the government does when they regulate AI or when they regulate platform economy. And here it is important for us to recognize that in Grenoble we can actually, with the academic and with the industrial environment, be pioneers. For example, with Lyon and Paris, we are the first of 3 cities in France to ban polluting diesel vans from getting at all into the inner city. It is happening already in many other cities in Europe, but here in France, these are the 3 cities that made a start. They were courageous. So we first accompany them, of course, and then we look at how can we police it. And there, to read the number plates and then to find the people, AI can help us. But we also look at how we can actually have hydrogen-powered vehicles that we can offer as a replacement to diesel-powered vehicles. That's a completely different strand of the ecosystem here, but it's also present. So yes, we do use these innovation capabilities to put into place public policies that we decided we want them for the people who have elected us. But on the other hand, it's true that in terms of the economic development, we work more on the incentive basis, and we will, with innovation funds and with projects that are selected on a call basis, we will then try to get emerging the projects in terms of economic projects that are closer to our heart than other projects.
How do you involve, and can you involve the citizens before recommending any direction? Is there a way now of consulting people rather than débat public, which is sometimes a failure?
Débat public is important. And it also should be in French sometimes. So it has to be in English to talk to people outside Grenoble, but of course you have to talk in the people's language. And IT is difficult. I'm an old gray-haired man, so I started Algol with punched cards more than 40 years ago. By then, there was a time in the 70s, 80s, and 90s where IT was accessible to the amateur, like bird watching. Today, we create here in Grenoble the Civic Lab. We create tools together with the innovation clusters, but also with NGOs. We create tools that make possible for the normal citizen to actually get to quite high-level IT projects, to train himself, and he gets public support to test them, and we also have a competition, as you said, to incite people to get into these projects, and some of them might then even create startups. It's very important that as a local authority, to make it possible for a maximum of people to actually do IT themselves, because you can only judge it if you know the culture. And there is one important last thing. You have to recognize that 15 to 20% of the people, even here in Grenoble, don't use IT. They even don't have a smartphone. Yeah. And we have to be very careful.
Elderly people,
we have to be very
people.
careful that these are not left behind.
Mm-hmm. Any question? No question. Philippe from Wavestone. There have two Philips. Well, it was mentioned, I think, by Bertrand Braunschweig. I want to understand more the importance of challenges, new challenges. I think, and maybe
you
somebody
mean the open call?
Yeah, and how are they related to calls? Or not?
In fact, there's a mechanism in the European funding which is called the cascade funding. We will implement, and we are not the only one, by the way. There will be with the 5 Digital Innovation Hub that have received funding from the European Commission, plus the European language platform. There will be something like 35 to 40 million euros of cascade funding in the next 3 years. So we have to coordinate it among us, of course, otherwise it will be a bit a mess. But the cascade funding is here to provide funding to third parties, which can be startups or SMEs, because they have not the size to manage the complexity of European project. Those third parties will receive funding because they will win the challenges. The challenges could be organized on various topics. For instance, the Digital Innovation Hub will organize open call around robotics, manufacturing, robotic supply, for instance, in agriculture or healthcare. And we have, us, AI4U, to organize 3 open calls. 2 of them will be on AI prototypes and will be more directed to researchers or developers to finance small developments. And one of them will be dedicated to startup and SMEs to allow them to enter into a technology transfer program that's aimed to transform them scale up.
And this call, does it exist?
Not yet.
Not
the first
yet.
one,
When?
The first one will be released beginning of January 2020.
Okay.
By the way, the platform should be released on end of the summer. The first version of the platform should be released on end of the summer, and the first call will be issued on 2020 January, and we will have one each year. The second one directed to the SME and startup will be in 2021, and the third one in 2022. And we have also created, and we aim to create some boards that can help us to govern the platform and to advise us on what could be the topics we need to implement in open calls. So there's an industrial alliance that will be created with the industrials that are already belongs to the projects, that are already partners, and the one who are willing to join the industrial alliance. And the idea is really to have the industrial partners, industrial players as a provider of insight, of maybe other pilots or other ID to the platform. There will be also an ethical advisory board, of course. It's mandatory, and a scientific committee. And we aim also to create what we have called a venture capitalist circle that can be very interested in joining the project, because we are going to screen a lot of startups all over Europe. And that's also one of the gaps we aim to try to solve. It's a problem of the venture capitalist gap if we compare to America and Europe.
Okay. A last word about finally what you think about all the public initiatives. There are many. If people know where to knock on the door, they go and see Philippe Wieczorek. But is this enough? Is this too many? How do you feel? Well, I suspect you feel very happy, Eric, at the present time. But what do you think? Do we have a clear strategy? Is it not clear enough? Well, I would like your comment.
I have really a mixed feeling, because we never have enough money.
Okay.
Of course.
First rule.
Of course. This being said, too many public funding kills the investment. So I've been discussing with some investor that said, basically the good company, the good emerging one, I'm talking about emerging company, they are funded by BPI and by public money, and then we cannot enter them on the first round. And then when they start their second round, they are too expensive for us. I'm talking about very, very small investors.
The second round, it's about 10
around,
million,
yeah,
20
around
million?
5-10 millions.
Okay.
Okay. This being said, we do need some public money to make initiatives like MIAI, for example, which really bootstrap. 20 million is big. It's not necessarily sufficient to build a worldwide initiative, because this is the ambition of MIAI. On the other hand, it attracts people, and it builds a real synergy, and it retains brilliant.
The answer's for you. You
brilliant
agree?
Scientific, because people like Cornelia, for example, I mean, she's probably any company from the world wants to hire her. So maybe thanks to Mia, she will still spend some time in Grenoble. Okay, I'm talking about her, but I know there are plenty of
We'll
others.
ask her afterwards.
I hope so. Anyway, so it's a matter of synergy. So 20 million is something, but group together with other initiative, with AI4U or other initiative, or like large companies that are continuing to invest in the area, we will finally build something big, and that's good.
Okay. Last remark, Eric Gossier.
So quickly, no, I agree with what Philippe just said. So it's not comparable to other initiatives in China, in the US, and maybe in Germany to come. But still, it's something, and as I said, it will certainly change the the way we are doing research in AI in Grenoble. I guess that Cordelia Meyer was the reason to stay in Grenoble, but she's part of the institute and she's partly funded by the institute, even though I'm not sure that she needs this money. But okay.
Okay, well, since there is no question, I think I will wrap up here and thank you all, gentlemen. I hope you understood a little bit more the number of initiatives that you can relate to if you need that. And you know that you have to be careful and knock on the good door. Thank you very much. Merci.